You've probably used headphones during recording or to mix at some point in your life. One thing that people find confusing is how to create multiple headphone mixes for an entire band if you want to record everyone live at the same time. Everyone in the band wants to hear things a little differently, so how do we pull this off? Before we get going, it's important to note that you'll only be able to create as many headphone mixes as you have outputs. If you're using a standard M-Box or M-Box 2 with only 2 outputs, you're not going to be able to accomplish this. You're also going to want a multi-channel headphone distribution amplifier and a set of headphones for every player. Here's all the tracks we'll be recording for our imaginary session. We've got some drum tracks, bass, 2 guitars, and vocals. We're going to need 4 headphone mixes, one for the drummer, one for the bass player, one for the rhythm guitar player who's also the singer, and one for the lead guitarist. Let's create 4 new stereo aux tracks. There we go. Now let's label them. Drum headphones, bass headphones, vocal headphones, and lead headphones. Next, we need to assign each of these headphone mixes to different outputs on our interface. We can do this by changing the outputs here. There we go. Remember that you need a way to monitor things yourself, so you can't assign one of these headphone mixes to the same output you're using. Now we need to set up the inputs on these tracks. We'll use buses. I'm going to use buses 1 through 8. Again, feel free to use whatever buses you want. If you've been watching starting from level 1 or 2, you probably know what we're going to do next. In order to get the signal from these tracks to the headphone mixes, all we need to do is create sends to these buses. Every track's going to need a send for each of our headphone mixes. That's a lot of sends to create, 4 for every track, and there's 11 tracks. That's 44 sends. Here's a few tips for creating sends quickly. Let's start by creating one send on the kick track to the drum headphone aux, which for me is assigned to bus 1, 2. Now, holding down Alt-Option, click and drag the send to the snare track. It's copied. We can keep doing this to add the send to all the tracks. This seems a little tedious though. Here's a better option. Let's send all these tracks to the bass player's headphone mix at the same time. First, we need to select all the audio tracks. Now hold down Alt-Option and Shift, and create a send to the bass headphone mix on any one of the selected tracks. Amazing! Every track had the send added to it as well. Let's do this for the other 2 mixes as well. Now all we have to do is figure out what everyone wants to hear and how much of it. Now we could just click on a send to bring it up, and then send some level, and then click on the next one, and so on and so forth, but I personally find that a little slow. Check this out. Open up the View menu and move down to Sends A to E. Select Send A. Now we can quickly view and set everything that's being sent to the drummer's mix. We can switch to Send B, C, and D to view the other mixes. Let's start with the drummer. Make sure you're viewing Send A. We can change the level of each send using these little faders. We can also adjust the pan, mute the send, and click on the P button to set the send to pre-fader mode. It's a good idea to set any send being sent to a headphone mix to pre-fader because the track faders won't affect the send level. This allows us to have a completely separate control room mix without affecting the headphone levels. Once the mix is set up, we can control the overall level of the mix using the aux faders. It might also be a good idea to put a limiter on these auxes to make sure you don't do any damage to a bandmate or client's ears. Let's pretend we finished setting up all the headphone mixes, and the vocalist decides he wants a little reverb on the vocals in his headphones. He asks the other guys in the band if they want the verb too, and they say no. So now we have to figure out how to give the lead singer some verb without affecting our mix or the rest of the band's. First, let's create one more aux input. Let's label it Vox Effects. Now set its input to be bus 910, and set its output to be the same as the vocalist's headphone output, which in my case is 7/8. Next, let's place a reverb plugin in the first insert slot. Now on the Vox track, we need to create one more send on send E. Right now we can't do it because we're focused on a specific send. To change this, go to the View menu and select Sends A to E Assignments. This brings us back to the Sends Assignment view. Now create a new send on E and choose bus 910. This new send will control just how much vocal will be sent to the vocal effects bus. Let's set this send to be pre-fader. This will allow us to have a different level between the dry and affected levels of the vocal. There you have it. Headphone mixes demystified.